When she was done preparing me, I didn't recognize the woman staring at me in the mirror. The draped shot silk of the dress clung to my body suggestively, and the flashy beading and high neck of the collar sent the whole outfit into trying too hard territory. I had always preferred simple styles that weren't so flashy. A dress like this was not something I would ever have chosen for myself. None of this was. You can feel sorry for yourself later, if you survive. Zara surveyed her handiwork with satisfaction. Well, no one will mistake who you're intended for, she smirked. Let's go. I blinked at the sunshine as we stepped out of the house. Already it felt like ages since I'd felt the sun on my face and the breeze on my skin. I would have rejoiced more in my freedom if it didn't feel like I was headed to my funeral. The path to the ceremony hall was lined with members of the pack. They milled about nervously, anticipation thick in the air. I saw Lillian, a friend of mine, staring at me worriedly. Avery, Lillian rushed to my side as we passed. Are you sure you want to do this? She whispered. I was touched by her concern. Lillian was one of the few packmates who'd never judged me for not being able to summon my wolf. She had been kind, and also brought me news about my mother when she could. I wished I could tell her everything, but that would only put her in danger as well. Although it felt like I had no true choice at all, I could choose not to endanger anyone else. I hugged her tightly instead, trying to put all of my gratitude and friendship into the embrace, and then kept walking. She dropped back, her eyes full of questions, but she didn't pursue me any further. Smart human, Zara laughed at me under her breath as we continued on. Keeping your mouth shut. Let the wolves do the talking, A familiar man stepped into our path. Seeing his handsome figure sent a pang of ice through my heart. Maybe one day it wouldn't hurt to look at him and remember how foolishly I'd loved and believed him. Ryan squared his shoulders and stared at me with disdain as we approached. How quickly you've changed, Avery, he said in a snide, cold voice. It took no time at all for you to cling to another alpha. There had been a time when Ryan had claimed to care about my well-being. How quickly the man I thought I knew had changed. And now he accused me of being false. Anger boiled under my skin at the double standard. Well, you would know all about betrayal, I snapped back. If anyone's trust was misplaced, it was clearly mine. I glanced between him and Zara. Congratulations, you two really are perfect for each other. Ryan's jaw clenched, and he looked away guiltily. I hoped he was remembering now all the times I'd shown him my loyalty. He would be lucky to get half as good from his new mate. Zara snorted. Oh, don't let her fool you with that innocent bullshit. She's no helpless victim. She ran her fingers underneath the lapels of Ryan's jacket and leaned into him to whisper. She was so desperate to get back at you that she allowed someone else to mark her. What? Ryan roared and reached for me. I tried to pivot away, but he snatched at the high collar of my dress and yanked it roughly. The delicate silk and beadwork was no match at all for the alpha heir's strength. My dress tore to my collarbone, exposing my neck. Wait, the mark is gone, Ryan questioned. She healed this fast. Zara seemed to be surprised too, grasping my neck even harder. Suddenly, the pain abated, and Zara's grip loosened. I looked up to see a large, dark form looming over us, silhouetted by the setting sun. Something familiar about him. I could not see his face at first, but his alpha aura was menacingly palpable as he pushed Ryan and Zara away with a casual shove. The stranger turned to face me, and I was struck by his handsome appearance. I should thank him. Thank yo, I started to say, but the man cut me off. So you are my chosen bride. His eyes narrowed. But why did I hear something about you being marked? Avery's POV. The handsome alpha approached, staring at my neck. His eyes were piercing daggers honing in on my skin. The very air around him rippled with intensity as he pinned me in place with a look. Oh shit, oh shit. My instincts screamed at me to run from this predator, to avoid unwanted attention. I was vulnerable, a specimen pinned on the path before this dangerous alpha. I yanked at the ruined collar of my dress and tried to lift it around my neck. The broken strands of beads slipped off their threads and bounced across the path as they rolled away. The torn silk slid through my numb fingers, and the collar parted to display my skin. "Show me." It wasn't a question. The alpha's tone conveyed that he expected obedience and was used to receiving it. Then he was in my space, mere inches away. "It's nothing," I protested, trying to turn away from him. I tried to cover up where the dress gaped open. "Lower your hand and prove it." Gideon's command cracked across my skin. My hand dropped away before I realized I was moving. His power was impressive and terrifying. For a long moment, we stood there. His eyes were storm cloud dark as he stared at my skin. My pulse was beating so hard, I was sure he could see it jumping in my neck. Gideon leaned closer. He inhaled deeply, as though he was trying to breathe in my scent. "Her skin is clear, Alpha," Zara squeaked with relief. "She is unmarked and unclaimed. You must have misunderstood what you heard." I allowed myself a shuddering breath. Even though I'd seen the mark healed earlier, it had felt like Alpha Gideon could see right through me regardless. Gideon's gaze lifted from my neck to my face. His eyes flickered with suppressed emotion. Fierce eyebrows drew together in frustration. Disappointment, I wondered. It seemed like he had been expecting something more. What more could he want? I wondered as he stared at me with disapproval. He was impossible to read. How can I marry someone who is so closed off? I wondered, and so terrifying. Finally, Gideon released me from that intimidating stare. He turned to Zara and gestured in my direction. "You led me to believe there was a woman here who would make a suitable wife. Instead, I'm presented with this." He looked me up and down, mocking. I felt shame creeping red-hot up my cheeks. I didn't ask for any of this. I thought indignantly. If only he knew how little of this situation had been within my control. Gideon's scorn was palpable as he continued. "I came to honor our treaty, yet so far all Silvermoon seems to offer are melodramatic, overdressed women." His scathing words carried easily to the wolves who lingered within earshot. The group of spectators had grown once Gideon had showed up. Everyone wanted to see who was going to be chosen, though none of them wanted to be his bride. If I was stronger, I wouldn't be in this situation, I thought, eyes downcast. I wanted to disappear into the dirt. I wasn't the only one who took offense. "Why is she marrying him?" Ryan demanded to Zara. Compared to Gideon's authoritative tone, Ryan seemed adolescent and emotional. "It's Alpha Gideon's choice if he wants to marry Avery or not," Zara said snidely. "I'm sure he'll make the right choice." She tugged at Ryan's arm to leave. As she passed by me, she checked her shoulder into my back and knocked me off balance. I stumbled forward, trying to recover my footing and not let my ripped dress gape open obscenely. For a second, the path surged up to greet me as I fell. Then I was choking. To my shock, I realized Gideon had gripped the torn fabric around my neck and was holding me up. He was so fast, I hadn't even registered he had moved. Gratefully, I caught my footing and straightened up. He must have seen what Zara did. Immediately, Gideon released me and wiped his hand on his shirt, as though he had touched something vile. His mouth twisted in disgust. Zara laughed, but shut her mouth when Gideon glared at her. Humiliation flooded through me. The thank you I had been preparing faded in my throat. He didn't need to treat me like I was trash. He was the one who needed to find a wife. "If you hate me so much, you can try to find another woman," I snapped. "I'd rather not," Gideon growled back. "Not if they're like your sister Zara here." His mouth sneered in a bitter twist with the bite of his words. Over his shoulder, I saw Zara's face darken. Ha! It felt great to see her at the receiving end of the nasty. Avery's POV. I won't marry you. My voice rang out and drew gasps from the crowd that had gathered to watch the scene. I shoved at Gideon. It had about as much effect as if I'd shoved a brick wall. He didn't move, but he did drop my arm roughly. I stared at him with a defiant expression. For a brief second, the corner of his mouth twitched upwards. His eyes swept me up and down, as though he was reappraising me. Then he turned away. Had he seemed pleased? His reaction threw me off and drained away some of the venom and fear I had built up for him. Since you won't marry me, it's now your pack's responsibility. Gideon lifted one shoulder slightly, as though he couldn't care less. Maybe he didn't. I have other matters to attend to. He spun on his heel and began to walk down the path back towards where his pack's entourage of cars were parked. A pair of wiry hands grabbed my arm. I turned to find Alpha Leon staring at me with his pale, ancient gaze. Avery, he rasped, you must marry Gideon. Since when did he care what happened to me? I couldn't remember the last time the old Alpha had even bothered to look in my direction. Other than commanding my father take me in when I was a baby, he'd never been involved in my life. Leon had been slightly more courteous when Ryan and I had become partners, but even then, I had remained solidly beneath his notice. Marry him and complete the wedding immediately. Leon's fingers were leaving red marks where they pinched my skin. We need Nightwolf's support. So now it was up to me to save this pack that had never cared whether I lived or died. Once they discovered my wolf wasn't emergent, they had treated me as though I barely existed, like I was dirt. You want me to marry that? For you? I nodded in Gideon's direction, not caring if he was still able to hear me. You may be my alpha, but I don't owe you that. Around us, the crowd murmured loudly, stunned at my insolence. I thought I saw Lillian among them, the sole person nodding approval.